So the book I've been listening to is called The Valley of Genius by Adam Fisher. I'm listening to it on Audible, so it's narrated by a guy named Pete Larkin. It's a great blend of a book that's a great blend of technology and business. So if it gets you in that entrepreneurial mindset, and it motivates you, definitely motivates you. But if anything, it even educates. It's more of an educational book because it does come into more of the details of. So on the cover is the uncensored history of Silicon Valley. So it goes into the details of these early 2000 tech companies that are like massive giants today, conglomerates today that, the government's trying to break down, such as Facebook, Twitter, Google. Government's trying to go in, regulate them more, and just break down these conglomerates because they own so much of the market share. But it goes into the startup stages, if it's hard to believe, but they had startup stages too, in which there were 10, 50 people company that grew from 10 to 50 to 50 to 100, and just all the challenges of scaling growth that they were going throughout, day by day, sometimes consecutive days, like double the amount of users from one day to the next, and how they were able to challenge and how to overcome that challenge and just beat their competitors. So yeah, this is since I come from a tech background, I really enjoy it. Maybe it's a little biased in my sense, but it's closer to the heart, in which I do understand some of the tech lingo, tech terminology coming out of it. But if anything, it's more business and educational, in which it does also pull in like the investor stories, um, like these angel investors uh, that didn't just throw money. An angel investor just doesn't throw money, but they invest and also guide and help the company grow to, you know, uh, thousands of users to millions of users, just because they've done it before, and they've done it plenty of times before, from scratch to big companies. And it's just really great to hear about. There's 200 plus interviews in this book, and it's these interviews are from the founders or executives themselves. So this Adam Fisher guy was able to interview some notable people, in which you hear quotes from these people, in which you want to hear today, since they're more on the radar, they're more censored, and they have to be careful what they say. But the quotes coming out from them before is just unbelievable to hear about. So that experts, so as you're reading, as you're listening, reading throughout the book, there is a lot of pauses. Like he does throw in a lot of quotes in there that doesn't really disrupt the rhythm, but it kind of gives you multiple points of views, which is very nice to see. So it's not just, half the time it's not even the author's point of view. It's a lot of these interviews or quotes coming from these other people. Um, so yeah, really enjoyed this book so far. So the book does have a lot of examples from eBay. There's a lot of interviews from eBay folks, the early founders, and it does go into kind of their growth stages, how they're doubling in users at some days every day, like for a consistent amount of days. Um, and it's just very exciting to go on that journey with eBay. A lot of like really cool things I learned about eBay, even though it's still big and it was launched, let's say 8, 10 years ago, or maybe a little less, 6 years ago or something. It had one of the IPOs still to date, one of the biggest IPOs, um, whether for any company or for a tech company for sure, but maybe for any company. But it had one of the biggest IPOs to date, and it really just controls the buying and reselling market online. When they started, actually one of their biggest products was Beanie Babies. If you guys could remember that, not so big today, didn't survive like how eBay did, but Beanie Babies was huge, and it really got the platform going because a lot of people were listing their Beanie Babies on eBay, and that was just really the biggest money movement for eBay. Like Beanie Babies was $1 billion market back then. Everybody was getting it, and it was mostly in every store, and eBay was able to capture that, like a percentage of the payments, and that's kind of what took them to flight. Even though when you start any company, you're gonna have massive, like, a lot of copycats, hundreds of copycats, and competition's good for you, right? Because the more competition you have, the more you can see what you're doing wrong, like how others are failing or how other things are doing, people are doing better. You can copy them back, right? So, eBay was able to get past how they were able to beat their copycats was, they talked about the fraud within handling the fraud within transactions. So they're really good at that, making sure that there was less fraudulent activities, and just just really pre-screening or screening any transactions that go through from their users, and just building that trust within the community. Um, like they didn't have to be like some. They talked about another company being a middleman, so you would ship the product to this company, and then that company would ship it to the seller. So the buyer would ship it to the company, and the company would ship it to the seller. But eBay avoided that because it just added cost and time to the whole transaction. They were able to build trust from buyer to seller, and kind of just overall protect the seller and the buyer, protect both, but more likely the seller, which launched their platform. So yeah, there's great stories coming out of eBay. They solved a lot of problems too. I think one of the workers at eBay also founded this HTTPS, and if you're not familiar with that, that's just how you securely go on these websites with your data. If that site doesn't have HTTPS, is not so secure, and there's no like really trusted connection. So like 90% of the sites, notable sites you go online, it's going to be HTTPS, so very secure. And that's what they introduced to the world when creating eBay, because that's a solution that they had to solve. Um, so yeah, if you want to learn more about eBay, this book definitely has some great insight from the early founders and the kind of the early executives, when it was 50, 100 person company. So the book also goes into these massive, extravagant parties um, that these early stage startups went through, like on a weekly basis. Whenever, like, probably the biggest party was the IPO date, when such as eBay or Facebook, those IPO dates, those parties were the biggest and best ever. But before then, whenever they had like small wins or big wins, and you're a startup for like 10, 20 people, you can throw these massive parties. And it's just really, it's business aside, technology aside, seriousness aside, these guys were working hard and playing harder. They're really just enjoying themselves. And um, like some of them became rich overnight through IPOs, right? And that kind of got to their head. But these parties, like just listening to it, I mean, just experiencing it through the book, it's like very extravagant and very fun to hear about. Um, they'll do like massive catering and drop like tons of money, since they had it at the time. Whether it's like I said, a small win that they got a feature across the board, or they saved the server from going down, or they were able to capture double the amount of users in a day. So yeah, they'll throw these parties. Most of these parties, this was Silicon Valley, right? So mostly in California. They'll get just uh, you probably go to these parties and meet a bunch of other founders too, a bunch of big tech heads. And it was just great to read about how they would bring in like dancers and singers, like big time artists, for these like underground parties that you wouldn't get invited to, or you wouldn't see on TMZ or the news, or the celebrity news. Even though they're just as big or even bigger, the money's there. So it was really great to read about the parties going into this. It was also very motivational to hear that all these founders who started these companies, they never, whether it's success or failure, they never stopped after one. So whenever they got their big IPO, their big break, and they became millionaires overnight. They watched their stocks go up. They never stopped at one company, which just comes to show that most of these rich people, like said in the book, um, wasn't doing it for the money, and that's the passion is really what like drove them to become successful. Like something like eBay, like passion for customer service, passion for just dominating the resale market is just what drove them to success. If it was for the money, I don't think they would have become as successful. But most of these people, yeah, after one company, they would take, they'll go splurge, buy some Lamborghini, buy some summer house, some yacht house out in the Bay, out in San Francisco, some sailing, get a sailing membership. But then a couple months after, they're right back into reinvesting that money, and doing it all over again from scratch and bringing these companies up. So that was really motivational to hear, and also success aside, the failures, they embraced failures. They loved the failures. When you go to like Y Combinator, some of these incubators, some of these investment groups where they take a percentage of your money or percentage of your company, invest some. I don't know, like I'm not a finance guy. I don't know too much, but they'll say, hey, to the group, 1 out of 10 of these startups is going to be successful, but we're willing to take that chance. So, but even the other 9 companies that failed, they're going to still go on, because the failures are just lessons for the next company for whatever they're going to build next. So overall, success, failure, they never gave up. They never let down. Even though they had a lot of make it or break it moments, like moments that would have just killed the company if, let's say, they didn't keep a server alive, or they didn't have some compliance that some regulatory compliance that they fulfilled or was in good standings with. So yeah, overall this book was really great. One of my favorite books so far for entrepreneurial tech. I still have some other books I want to get into, but I would definitely recommend this for all the entrepreneurs, business, tech mindsets out there. So go check it out and enjoy it.